Today on the Whole Person Podcast, I am interviewing Joe Pomeroy, who knows how to translate business principles into life success. Joe gained a deep knowledge of business while developing and building 8-figure companies and earning his MBA. More importantly, he discovered how to utilize those same hard-earned skills to save his marriage and his family. He went from his wife walking out the door to having confidence and committed and connected relationship. And now he is helping other men and women and households learn how to use these same principles to develop more confidence in their role as a husband or wife and parent. Joe, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, Evan. I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here to connect with you and with your audience.
Well, good. I was so glad to have you, man. Thanks for coming on and just being you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I got to say, I love your glasses.
Thank you.
Not only do they look cool, but they definitely, I think they speak to your personality. So that's perfect.
That's what I'm going for. So, to get into it, share with the audience a little bit about who you are and your background more than what I have already done.
Yeah, you got it. Well, I'm a Christian entrepreneur. I'm married. I've got 3 young kids and I've done, pardon?
How old are your children?
They are, my oldest is 7. I have 7, 5, and 3.
We're close. We're really close. 6, 3, and 8 months.
Oh, okay. That's great ages. My 3-year, yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day and I think with parenting, it was actually my sister-in-law and she was mentioning how, I'm not looking forward to the teen years. I've heard those are really hard. And it just made me think of the story of, the guy who's driving and he pulls over and he asks the farmer on the side of the road, hey, we're going to be new in this town. What kind of people are in this town? And he says, well, what kind of people were in your old town? He says, there were a lot of, unfriendly and didn't talk to you. He says, well, you'll find those same kind of people here. And then the next car, they says, my last town, they were great. They were wonderful people. You'll find those same kind of people here. So I think there's pros and cons to every stage of parenting.
Right.
Like 8 months, we're potty training our 3-year-old right now. And that's not exciting, but I will be so stoked when there's no more diapers,
Right.
And 8 months, you have that adorable little baby that you get to spend time with. But at the same time, it's so there's pros and cons to every stage, I think.
Oh yeah. When my 2 boys battle at each other, like right now, I just pick up my youngest and I go to the other room and I just enjoy him. Like, you can fight all you want. I'm going to take this dude and we're going to go sit in the chair rock and he's just going to smile at me.
That's perfect. Yeah. And I love, that's such a great age too, because that's what your youngest is doing. And it's so, for me, when my kids were that young and even now when they're still okay with some cuddle time with dad, like that's so rejuvenating. It's so good for helping me reset my mind on what matters most. Yeah. I don't care about all the things that don't go perfectly throughout the day because I've got this amazing family that I get to come back to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, continue because I did cut you off about the children aspect.
No worries, man. All right. So married Christian entrepreneur, 3 kids. I've been married for a little over 10 years, which is a miracle in and of itself. So when I started out my career in the corporate world, kind of kept moving up the different ladder, going, being recruited from one business to another, helped build a brand new startup company into an 8-figure titan in its industry. And I thought I was amazing at work and I'd come home and I didn't get that same adulation. I didn't have that same connection with my wife. My colleagues would love me, but I didn't know how to communicate with my wife. And as a successful businessman, as a successful entrepreneur, clearly it was her fault. Clearly it was my spouse's fault because everybody at work, they understood what I was saying. They knew what I was trying to accomplish. So there must be something going on with her. And it was just, home was hard. Work was easy. So I'd escape home and dive into work. And that worked until it didn't. And then things got messy. Things almost broke apart. Realized I needed to take a new path and kind of refocus. And I think, Evan, that's one of the things I love so much about what you're doing and your podcast is focusing on that whole person, recognizing that you can't try to build yourself up as a 10 in one area and be a 1 or a 2 in other areas of your life and think that's going to be okay, that's going to bring you happiness and joy, right?
Right. No, you're 100% right.
Yeah. So I love that about what you're doing and what you speak to your audience about. And it's a powerful message and it's needed. So I'm glad that you're doing that. But yeah, so I mean, really it's just and I'll give you the shorter version. Transformation was necessary. Transformation took place. I used to have a phenomenal faith in forgiveness and grace and mercy that comes
Until you got married.
Right. Well, yeah, there's that part of it too. And I'm realizing that I need a whole lot more of it. But man, I mean, Evan, boy, I could talk to you. I could talk to your audience. Anybody that needs to know what Jesus Christ can do for them, absolutely, that's there. And he'll help you. But I knew me. I knew what my weaknesses were. I knew what my shortcomings were. I knew what was in the dark corners of my closet. And and so there was no forgiveness was something I had to earn. Grace was something I had to earn. Before I could allow Christ into my life, I needed to reach a certain level of
holiness.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And man, I tell you what, that was the biggest difficulty to rewrite because I didn't realize how much that bled into every area of my life. Well, if my wife really knew me, she wouldn't really love me. And so I need to become put on some kind of external experience that she will love so that as the years go by and she comes to get to know me, that she'll be okay. And so trying to better understand and trying to figure out who I needed to be as a human being and how I could be the same person throughout my career, my family, my fatherhood, in my marriage, like all of that, man, that's the journey that I've been on, that I am on. And that's me.
You know, you were talking about, if my wife really knew these areas, she wouldn't love me. And one of the things that I picked up on is that was your own insecurity of, well, I know my areas and I don't love me. And so therefore, if your wife knew those areas, she couldn't either. And I have struggled with that in my own marriage. I struggle with really wanting to be a high producer. And I don't want to say perfectionism, so to say, but because I'm definitely not into perfectionism, but I like things to be done at a certain pace, at a certain time, meet deadlines. And when was it, this morning? I asked my wife to, we have a trash can in our bedroom, which I love, by the way, because it really helps break down trash and clutter. So, just a small trash can. And yesterday she took out the trash. And then last night I threw something away, but then there was no trash bag. And I got really upset on the inside. I was like, just put a trash bag in there right away. But I don't do that sometimes too in the kitchen. So, but what was funny is this morning, I was like, hey babe, will you put a trash bag in there for me? And she's like, sure. And then when she went to go do it, and she did, I said, hey, by chance, did you take out the trash that was in the bottom of the bin before you put the bag in there? And she goes, Evan, do you think I'm incompetent? I said, no. She's like, do you think I can put a trash bag in the trash can? And I said, yeah. She's like, then why are you asking? I was like, well, I was just assuming maybe you didn't see it. I don't know. But what I realized is I struggle with, if I don't do it, it's not done correctly. And my dad kind of was that way. I'm a little bit that way. And I also struggle personally where, whatever I do isn't good enough. And that's something I project on my wife, my kids, that regardless of what they do, it's not good enough, because that's my own insecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so much of what we project, what we put forward, what we get frustrated in with others is a result of whether or not we're in a healthy position in that place. And the reality is that I'm a firm believer in nature and nurture. I think they absolutely both take part in it. But you think of anything that you want to grow and develop in, there's models that you watch, whether it's business and you're looking, that we talk about, or I'm sure people have heard that success leaves clues, or, that there's a path, there's things that you can do. If you want to become a better athlete, you get the right coach, you go to the right programs. There's these examples that we model. And so to the extent that we can have let go of control is modeled based on control. But you actually, Evan, as you're talking about, if I don't do it, it doesn't get right, or things have to be done a certain way, I can totally relate to that. Absolutely. And as you were talking about that, I suddenly was thinking about school and going to school. And there was always this, I liked math because the problem was either correct or it wasn't. The answer was either 5 or it wasn't, right. And then you get into more subjective math where, well, we need to see the process. We need to see how you got the answer, and you didn't get the answer the right way. Okay. That was frustrating. But English classes, man, I loved writing, but every English teacher was different in what they expected. And there was a certain checklist. Yeah. Certain objectives that needed to be met, a certain checklist that needed to be crossed off. And if that wasn't done, then I didn't get the grade I was looking for. So what does that teach? That teaches that I have to follow an exact format, an exact program to succeed, which then means everybody else needs to do that too. If I have to follow it, and I'm not even sure why I follow it, and sometimes I'm not getting the results I want when I try and follow what I think it is that I'm supposed to follow, then I've got to hold that same expectation for others and that same standard for others. I read, I was doing some parenting research once a couple years back and came across, and I wish I remember where it was, I'd give credit to it, but it talked about that when we are confident in how we parent, we don't feel the need to judge or correct someone else's parenting style. So for example, I parent different than my in-laws. My in-laws are fantastic, but a lot of my wife's siblings, they parent very different than me and my wife do. And there was a time a couple years back where everything that was going on, I was like, I can't believe they're doing that. I mean, I wouldn't do that for our kids. This is how we need to do our kids. And there's just too much of this, or there's too much of that. And realizing like how insecure I was in my parenting and how insecure I was as a father, because I was judging someone else's choices so much. I was judging their approach. Where then as I grew into confidence about how I handle certain situations with my kid, whether or not it's okay for my son to cry when he falls down and his leg is bleeding, kind of thing. Like, oh no, stand up, rub some dirt in it. If that's what you want to do, great. But if you go, oh, here, son, let me hold you, and no, I'm so sorry, it hurts. If that's what you want to do, great. Just know what it is that you want to do and do that. And boy, have I gotten sidetracked from where I started with this. Point being that we have models that we follow. And if you don't like where you're at, you can look back at the model that's brought you to that point, take from it what's powerful and important, and then adjust accordingly to gain confidence. Because as you have that confidence, that'll be portrayed to your spouse and your kids. Whew, that was a roundabout way.
So in business, there is a restaurant near me called Speedy's, Mexican restaurant. And I went there once and I ordered my food. Not only did they bring me the wrong order, but then I ordered again, and then they brought me the wrong order again. And then by the time they finally brought my food, everybody else was done eating and ready to go. And then they had the audacity to charge me. And I was not happy. And I basically was like, look, guys, I'm sorry. I'm just not going to pay this. Thanks for the food, but I'm not paying this, because now I don't get to enjoy the reason why I came out to eat, which was to spend time with these people. And from that moment forward, no, I take that back. I paid for the food. I don't, no. Yeah, you're right. I actually paid for the food. I take that back. And I asked them to comp it and they wouldn't do it. And so from that moment forward, I was never going to step foot in that restaurant again. And I worked right by it and I ate there like twice a week. And so the frustrating part was the loyalty that I had to them, and they knew me, but when they screwed up, they weren't willing to own it and make it right. Fast forward, it goes under new management. Place was so much better. It was really enjoyable. But some of the same processes did carry over because they had some of the same staff. And now they've changed the name and it, staff turnover, and it's great. But what happened is, even though there was new management, because they had some of the same processes, it wasn't fully the way that I had hoped. But they did a lot better and it changed and it grew. And I love that place now. Don't get me wrong. So going back to what you're saying, in modeling, sometimes our models that we use in our own lives came because that's the way we were raised. They were ingrained into us and they're just habits. And they weren't conscious decisions. I noticed a lot of my parenting and marriage stuff came because it's how I saw my parents. It's how my parents raised me. And by default and by automatic programming, that's what I did. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. It's just what I did because that's what was modeled for me and all I knew and what I did. Until I had to take ownership of those models and change them so that they would produce a better and different result.
I like that. I think there's a lot of value there. And what you're bringing up, I think, is really important for all of us to understand too. But, two things. One is that it was a process.
Yeah.
It was a process of change. New ownership came along, or we take ownership of a certain area in our lives. It's a process. Mm-hmm. Like, allow that process to unfold, be patient with it. And it sounds like you were with the restaurant. You go into the restaurant one time, oh, new management. Oh, well, that still fell apart. So never mind, I give up. I'm not coming back again. You missed out on what it became and what it turned into. And the other element that I think is important is you just took an analogy or an example from a restaurant business, and you took the principle that mattered and you translated that to your parenting. And that's my favorite thing to do. Like, that's what I love to do, is that there's principles. There's so many examples throughout a life. Why do you think analogies and metaphors are so prevalent in communication? It's because we can explain things in one way that registers more highly in another area of our lives. And it helps us understand that new area at a different level. Now, whether or not it creates change depends on whether or not we're focused on the underlying principle. And as we learn to unveil that underlying principle, we have the opportunity to start magnifying new areas of our lives. And how much time have you spent dedicated to developing your business acumen?
Never. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm constantly working on that. Like, I just, every day I think about it. Every day I'm tweaking it. Every day there's something that I'm doing.
Yeah. And how long have you been in business for yourself?
8 years.
8 years. And what kind of training or certification or schooling did you go to prior to starting your business?
Got a degree in theology. Then
Is that a 4-year degree, 2-year degree?
4-year degree.
Okay. We're at 12 years now.
And then, well, in condition to that, before I was a real estate agent, I was a insurance agent with property, casualty, life, and health. So I had 2 state license there. Currently, I have 2 state license, one my real estate license and the other one my broker associate license. So there's that as well.
So then all the hours of effort and studying to be able to qualify for that, because I've had family in the same industry, and that takes a lot of looking over the regulations and making sure you're in line. So loads of hours there. So we're looking at anywhere from 12 to 15 years that you've dedicated to have the successful business brain skill set and in what you're doing right now. So now let's say that I've just devoted the last, and we'll go with the low end of this just to make it simple. So I've just devoted 12 years to becoming amazing at business, both through formal education and on the job training, right? So 12 years. And now I suddenly decide, it's time to start a family. I'm going to go get married. I'm going to have kids, and I'm going to do this. Man, marriage is hard. My wife and I are on our honeymoon. We're on our honeymoon. Everything's supposed to be great and perfect. One night we're going to head out of the resort and we're going to go get someplace to eat. We were in a different state, different location, wanted to try some new local food. So, hey, sweetie, where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? Well, no, we could do this or we could do that. What do you want to do? And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's done this. The back and forth always reminds me of the vultures on Jungle Book. Now, don't stop that again. But just this back and forth. And it finally, there was just, I said, oh, well, I decided last time, why don't you choose this time? Oh, well, really, I'm good with whatever. Just this back and forth, like so afraid to make a decision because we didn't want to choose something that the other person wouldn't enjoy, that we didn't make any decision. And all it did was create frustration. And we're on our honeymoon. This is supposed to be a perfect, magical moment. And it's not. And it actually started to escalate into an argument. And I thought, what have I done? What marriage is supposed to be easy. My mom told me once when I was younger, the hardest part about being married is you're a boy and she's a girl. And I said, Mom, that's the best part. But no, it really is the hardest part because you look at things different ways and you interpret things different ways. Well, I put 12 years, Evan, using your example, 12 years into becoming the business success that you are today. But we don't give that kind of time to our relationships. We don't develop that kind of investment and education into our parenting. Maybe we read a book. Maybe we follow somebody on Instagram or something like that. And part of it is that we don't have the time. There's so little time available to us, and there's so many opportunities to make memories, to enjoy moments, that if I spend 12 years studying relationships, and I didn't spend 12 years, I spent 8 years going to workshops, recovery programs, counseling, therapy, things like that, because I needed to rescue my marriage, and almost lost it because of the amount of time it took. And it wasn't until it finally clicked that I can find principles in things I'm already successful at, in things I already know and enjoy, and I can translate those principles, and I can have exponential growth and success in my relationships at a much faster rate.
I want to get into this. Before we go down this rabbit hole deeper, you want to know my honeymoon blunder?
Yes, please. That way I don't feel alone.
So we're having a great time. And we're setting out on a terrace. We're having dinner, sun is setting. It's over the ocean. It is gorgeous. It is so fun. And I make the stupid comment, hey, wouldn't it be cool if so-and-so was here with us? And for vacations with friends, in my mind, I was like, well, maybe someday, we're going to take vacations with friends because we're married and now we can do married couple things. Like, I was excited to be married. And that's what my heart was trying to say. But what my wife heard me say was, we're here on a honeymoon and it's not enjoyable enough with just me. He needs other people here. So what my heart was trying to communicate, like, hey, I can do married stuff. I'm married now. And what my wife heard are two different things. And it was really funny because I was speaking blue and she was hearing pink. There's this difference of how men and women communicate. But that was my blunder because I couldn't understand what I was saying and how it would affect her and how she would perceive it. Oh, that was one of those moments.
Well, I tell you what, the reality is what you communicated wasn't wrong, and what she heard wasn't wrong. I learned a long time ago, I have to get away from right and wrong.
Yeah.
Yes, there's eternal principles and things like that are good, evil, right, wrong. But for the most part, most of what we need to operate in and what's better for us to operate in, instead of looking at things, well, did you say the right thing? Did you say the wrong thing? No. Is it healthy or is it unhealthy? Am I saying this in a healthy way or an unhealthy way? Is it being received in a healthy or unhealthy way? Because then you can go back to that conversation and it's not about winning. It's about, well, I felt like what I was saying was healthy because this is where my heart was. And your wife can say, oh, well, I received that in an unhealthy way because this is how I took it. Neither one of you was wrong. Neither one of you was incorrect. But our experiences, how we hear things, how we say things is based on our past, is based on our history. And it's also based on our present. I mean, if she's very caught up in that moment with you and she's so excited and it's this perfect moment that she's completely present in, then, but you're in a different place where, yes, you're there with her, you're present with her. And now you're starting to expand beyond that into the future of opportunity and how great a blessing this is right now. And you're looking forward to the development of that blessing. I mean, there's nothing wrong either way in either of that. So much of what we get involved in as couples, and we can, I mean, again, looking at principles, this goes to business too. Conversations with clients. Yeah. How many times have you had a conversation with a client and I think I'm directly on track. We're going in the perfect direction. I'm, ticking all those boxes, and boy, I'm just the best person they've ever hired for XYZ. But then they don't want to continue, and I don't understand why. And it's interpretation of things. And so it's figuring out that principle, figuring out what's underneath that communication to allow us to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the things in your life through the experiences that you had that have been some of the most profound lessons from business that you've been able to translate into marriage or parenting?
Yeah. I think one main thing is that, again, focusing on the principles. People say all the time, business and family are different. You can't treat them the same. You can't run a family like a business. Well, yeah, you can. And the reason you can is because you're focused on principles. The reason you can lead your family like you would lead a company.
Systems, yeah.
Yeah. And principles, systems, focus, attention, dedication, commitment, all of those things are absolutely necessary in business and family. But if I'm not a good leader in business, if I micromanage in business, if I control my employees through fear, that's not going to translate well to family. That doesn't work in family. So I need to understand business. I need to be confident in business so that I can then, those principles, those are the things that translate. But to give you an example, there's times where things don't work out. And a client comes in and I felt like I was really doing everything that I could do, and it just doesn't work out. And the client goes away. And that's something that, okay, well, how does that translate to family? Because walking away from family, that's divorce. That's, I'm not seeing my kids half the time. There's so much that can be unhealthy about that. But really, if we look at the principle is in business, if you lose a client, it's a bummer, but you get up and you move on and you go get another client, right? The business keeps moving forward. Hey, I don't know what happened there. I'm going to learn what I can from it. And now I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to go get another client. I'm going to get more clients, and I'm going to try and do better with those ones. That same principle of getting back up again, learning what you can, get back up again, and keep moving forward, that also applies to family. But I'm not going to move on to a new spouse. I'm not going to move on to different kids. I could never move on to different kids or spouse. But now I can look at the situation and I go, man, handled that really poorly. But I can get up from it. I can say, okay, well, what can I learn from that? Maybe using your honeymoon blender, maybe I can use an example. Maybe I can preface what I say with my wife. Maybe I can say, I'm so glad we're here in this moment. And I'm so excited about what this is going to grow into. Like, wouldn't it be cool to do this in the future with so-and-so here with us? And now, prefacing something like that and going forward. Okay, so maybe I need to make sure that I preface my comments so that I'm on this, my wife is in the same mind space as me before we have that conversation. Yeah. and then I can move forward. But what happens is we make mistakes in marriage and I go, oh my gosh, that was a terrible parenting moment. I should not have said that to my kid, or I swore I wasn't going to spank him again, or whatever it happens to be. And we beat ourselves up and we start asking ourselves bad questions. Man, why did I do that? What's wrong with me as a parent that I did that? Am I falling into bad habits? And our brain will answer those bad questions in unhealthy ways. So with parenting, with whatever we're doing, one principle, one big takeaway, going back to your question, what's one big takeaway? Learn, get back up, do better. Follow that pattern, follow that principle. You'll succeed in business. You'll succeed in your marriage. You'll succeed as a parent.
Learn. What was the second one?
Get back up.
Get back up.
Do better.
Do better.
And if you put that on rinse and repeat, you put that on the repeat over and over and over, man, you're gonna live an amazing, powerful life that's going to impact a lot of people in powerful ways.
So yesterday I was doing a podcast with a local guy, and I was telling him how I want to wake up at 4 a.m. and it's been difficult. And I've set my alarm, consistently for a long time. And, but then I turn it off every morning. He goes, but wait, but you're setting the alarm. It's like, you don't understand. Like, that's over half the battle. You're halfway there. And it changed my perspective. Like, wait, turning it off while I felt like a failure. Now when I go do that, and it's not only a habit or a system to get me up, but now I view that as a success versus just, okay, the success is whether I wake up or not. No, the success is setting the alarm the night before. And going back towards our analogies of family and business, if you want a functional family, you need to have good systems. And I've never thought about that really before until this conversation where, we have plans and we have hopes and desires. And I'm growing more and trying to systemize things as my time becomes more full with activities. I'm trying to find systems and processes in my business and in life to alleviate those things. And so when I look at my family, for example, like this morning, I'm doing the podcast. Well, what can be going on right now during the podcast? Laundry. So my laundry is going, versus, waiting for my wife to do it on a weekend when everyone's home. I'll just start the laundry now and then I'm going to pile it on the bed for her to fold and put away later. That way she doesn't have to, that's a system or a process. Okay, here's another example. This is so stupid, okay? So like any normal human family, like our house is not perfect. I would love to have a clean and perfect house all the time. But it's just not, it just doesn't happen because we live in it all the time. And not everyone picks up after themselves, myself included. But one of the things I did was I put a trash can in my bedroom. It's not small. It's not big. It's a medium-sized trash can. And it's right next to our bathroom because there's not enough space in our bathroom for a trash can. You know how much cleaner our bedroom has been because of the trash can in there? I have a broom in the bathroom so that I don't have to go get a broom when I want to sweep something. It's right there. And those are just small housekeeping things. But when I look at my kids, one of the systems that I am now establishing with my family and with my son, like I've been wanting him to hear God's voice for a very long time. And from a young age, I have heard God's voice. And so I keep telling my son, God wants to speak to him. God wants to speak to him. What is he saying? What is he saying? I don't know. I can't hear him. I don't know. I can't hear him. Talking with a friend, and my friend said, hey, we have family devotions. And then after devotions, I give my son a drawing book. And I say, think about the story and then let God give you a picture in your head. And then I want you to draw it out. So yesterday I did that with my son, and he drew a picture of Jesus in his 6-year-old drawing ability and another man. And then he wrote 10, and he goes, Jesus is healing many people, and that Jesus wants to know his healing is real. And I said, why does he want you to know this? Why is he saying? He said, because Jesus wants me to be bold and tell other people about his healing and then use me for healing. And then we wrote down a prayer. And then what I realized after doing that, I was like, wait a second, this is his first journal entry. It's a drawing. And then I'm the one that wrote with it. Like, okay, what does it mean? Why is it being said? And what's your prayer? And he had a legit journal entry. And then he's like, all right, let's do the next one. I'm like, no, we're not gonna do another one, because now you just want to draw and start making stuff up. There's a difference from hearing God and making stuff up. But that was a process and a system. So what are some systems that we can use in our family that you've felt like has worked or you've seen work?
That's a great question. And I definitely want to answer that. There's something that came up with your story that I think will be important to point out. So one of the things that's so powerful about what you did with your son is that you met him where he was at. His ability to understand what he was hearing from God and then translate that into and then manifest that in some form. It was new. He wasn't sure what that was like. What does hearing the voice of the Lord sound like? What does that feel like? And so meeting him where he's at. Okay, how can we bring this out of a 6-year-old, right? Is he 6 or yeah? How can we bring this out of a 6-year-old? Well, you know what? Loves to draw, loves to do things like that. So let's go there. And then I didn't even think about this. And but both with my honeymoon blunder and your honeymoon blunder, we were trying to get our spouses to meet us where we were at. So how often are we successful in business when we force clients to meet us where we're at and to see things through our world lens versus when we go to where they are at and we meet them where they are at, and it gives them the opportunity then to communicate, to share. We can connect better. We can go forward better. So I think that's another powerful principle that has come to light in several of the stories that we've talked about. To meet our spouse, to meet our children, to meet our clients, meet whatever we're doing, meet them where we're at. Start where they're at, understand there, and then from there you can take the journey together to where you want to go or where you need to go. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that story, Evan.
You bet. It is my pleasure. So what you're saying, have you ever read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People?
Yes.
Okay, so there's this poem in the book, and it wrecked me because it was a mirror image of my relationship with my father and how often I fathered my children. So here it is. Listen, son, I'm saying this as you lie asleep. A little paw crumbled under your cheek, and the blonde curls stickily wet on your damp forehead. I've stolen to your room alone just a few minutes ago. As I sat reading my paper in the library, a stiffening wave of remorse swept over me. Guilt, I came to your bedside. There are things I was thinking, son. I had been cross to you. I scolded you as you were dressing for school because you gave your face a mere dab with a towel. I took you to task for not cleaning your room. I called you out angrily when you threw some of your things on the floor. At breakfast, I found fault too. You spilled things. You gulped down your food. You put your elbows on the table. You spread the butter too thick on your bread. And as you stared off to play, and I made for my train, you turned and waved your hand and called Daddy goodbye. And I frowned and said in a reply, hold your shoulders back. Then it began all over again in late afternoon. I came up the road and I spied on you, down on your knees playing marbles. There were holes in your stockings. I humiliated you before your friends, marching you ahead of me to the house. Stockings were expensive, and if you had to buy them, you would be more careful. Imagine that, son, from a father. Do you remember later when I was reading in the library and you came in timidly with sort of a hurt look in your eyes? When I glanced over my paper, impatient at your interruption, you hesitated at the door. What is it that you want? I snapped. You said nothing, but ran across and plunged into my arms and put your arms around my neck and kissed me. And your small arms tightened with affection that God had set blooming in your heart, which even the negligent cold winter could not overcome. And then you were gone, pattering up the stairs. Well, son, it was shortly afterwards that my paper slipped from my hands and a terrible, sickening fear came over me. What habit have I been doing? The habit of finding fault, of reprimanding. This was my reward to you for being a boy. It was not that I did not love you. It was that I expected too much of youth. I was measuring you by my own yardstick and my own years. And there's so much that is good and fine in your true character. The little heart of you was as big as the dawn itself over wild hills. This was shown by your spontaneous impulse to rush in and kiss me goodnight. Nothing else matters tonight, son. I have come to your bedside in darkness, and I have knelt there ashamed. A feeble atonement, I know. You would not understand these things as I told you them during your waking hours. But tomorrow, I'll be a real daddy. I will chum with you, and I'll suffer when you suffer and laugh when you laugh. I will bite my tongue when impatient words come out. I will keep saying as a ritual, he is nothing but a little boy. I am afraid I have visualized you as a young man. Yet as I see you now crumpled and weary in your cot, I see that you are still a baby. Yesterday, you were in your mother's arms and your head on her shoulders, and I have asked too much, too much.
It's powerful. As you're reading that, I'm thinking of things from either this morning or last night or areas to improve. And I don't know if it's the music playing with it or what, but really moving. I appreciate that.
You bet, man.
It brings up this idea and a recognition that it doesn't matter how long I've been doing this. It doesn't matter how old my kids get. It's still a process. It's still a journey. I think if we can find that space where we recognize the need to and the opportunity of improvement, both in ourselves and our kids, it allows for a lot of grace. It allows for a lot more tenderness. It allows for a lot more connection and authenticity. I mean, we're never going to get it just right,
Right.
but we can get close, and we can learn, get back up, and do better.
And hopefully along the way, there's less and less moments we have to go to the bed.
Yeah.
Apologize.
Yeah. I've made it a practice to apologize to my kids and let them know when I made a mistake, and talk about, ask them, okay, well, so what can daddy do better that time or next time? and get their ideas and input. I say, okay, well, what can we do better together next time?
Yeah.
So going back to your question about systems, I mean, that can apply here. Like how in business, something that that consistently takes place are performance reviews, our communication and connection. I mean, if the department head only speaks to those that report to him or her, if they're only speaking once a year, that's a poorly run department. There's too much that goes by. There's too much time lost. So in business, what kind of system would you create? What kind of system would you put in place in a business to make sure that you are on the same page with the goals and the expectations of what's going on, that you're checking in on those goals and expectations to make sure that they're realistic, that they're achievable, that they're on par with the employees that you have? What are you doing to make sure that you're supporting them in their efforts, then that you're doing it from a place of servant leadership and a place of positivity? Those are all things that you can put together a plan so that you're being proactive instead of reactive. Well, why not do the same thing with your family? Why not do the same thing with your kids? Why not ask your kids, and depending on where their ages are, give them the opportunity to create the goals. Hey, what would you like to do this summer? Hey, what would you like to achieve this year in school? What would you like to do over the holidays? Whatever season of life it is, get input from your kids on things that they see of importance and value, and then help them come up with ideas of how you can do that together. And then once you do that, check in, set a time that hey, you know what? Every Sunday night, we're going to do a family night together. And we're just going to kind of sit down. We're going to talk about what went good over the week and share successes. And we're going to talk about what we can do better this week.
Yeah.
And those are things that you do in business. Why wouldn't you do them in your family? If they're bringing you success in one area of your life, why wait to translate that?
As you're sharing that, one of the things that I have failed to do is do, devotional time with my family, because it's really difficult when you have 3 boys trying to go everywhere. But yesterday, what I realized is like, you know what? My 3-year-old, he ain't gonna be still enough for this. So what I can do is my wife be there, the baby will be there, my oldest will be there, and then the 3-year-old will just be doing something. I don't have to try to control him. But if I create the environment and be consistent in it, over time, he will be conditioned to that environment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that makes sense. It's the same thing like with doing social media ads or Google ads, something like that. Oh, well, I posted the ads for a full day and I spent $10 on it and I haven't got any clients, so that must mean it's not working. No, we don't do that. You create consistent habits in what you're doing. You put yourself out there consistently. You make yourself available. You get in front of your audience. And then when they are ready to receive, they're coming to you. So in family, and with that example with your son, I can completely relate to that. My 3-year-old, she was born 4th of July, and she is a firecracker for sure. And so she's all over the place, and it's very hard. And sometimes I get frustrated because I'm like, it's not even working. Why are we even bothering? We end up getting more frustrated. Any spirit that we'd been inviting, positive spirit we'd been inviting into our home, we're pushing it away. So what's the point? Well, the point is that last night, in fact, we were out with family. We were out really late by the time we got home, and we were getting ready for bed. And my kids go, well, what about reading scriptures? My 7 and 5-year-old were both wondering, why aren't we reading scriptures? Yeah, how humbling that is as a dad, where I'm thinking, you know what, it doesn't matter. It's late. We just need to skip it. We need to get to bed. And yet my kids are wanting to know, hey, but this is what we do. We're a family that reads scripture together before bed.
Yeah.
And they don't think about their little 3-year-old sister running around being crazy, causing havoc. They just know that that's something. We're a family that reads scripture together.
Yeah. Joe, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today. I like to end each show with the same 3 questions, okay?
You got it.
In terms of negative self-talk, what do you currently struggle with?
Oh, so I have battled with depression and anxiety for about the last 20 years. And I've come to recognize patterns as to when it hits me the most. And the negative self-talk I struggle with the most is probably the imposter syndrome. I mean, here I am, somebody who I coach men to become expert husbands and world-class dads. And I have my own weaknesses and my own imperfections. And so then comes the question of, who are you kidding? Who are you to do this? And when we ask bad questions, we get bad answers.
Yeah. Can't be God or your wife. What's the best decision you've ever made?
I love that question. And I knew it was coming, and still I think sometimes it changes. So not God, not my wife. The best decision I ever made was also one of the hardest decisions I ever made. And that was to walk away from a highly successful corporate career, a powerful resume, and to create a coaching business, create something where I can share what I have learned so that others can skip the 8-year process, can skip the high risks, pains that I went through, and have success at a faster rate with their families.
You can answer this last one however you want.
7.
Perfect. What brings you peace?
Being present. And Jesus Christ, absolutely. But I have to be present with Christ. I have to let him in. And when I'm present with my family, I'm not worried about what time the kids are getting to bed. I'm not worried about what's on my calendar for tomorrow or the next day. I'm not worried about how much of their dinner my kids are eating. When I'm just present and I sit back and I look at these beautiful, amazing kids that, for all my weaknesses and shortcomings, love me to pieces. And I look at this amazing woman that I've been blessed to have in my life, and I just sit back and I just am present with them. Those are the best moments.
Where can people find you if they want to connect?
Absolutely. I have some special gifts available, free things for your audience, and they can go to forwardwithjoe.com/whole person. So forwardwithjoe.com/whole person, and they'll get some free gifts and opportunities there.
Joe, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Evan. You too.
Take care.